welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. Striking a conciliatory note after incidents on the India-China border, India on Thursday invoked the spirits of the Wuhan and Mahabalipuram summits, in which both sides had reaffirmed that they will make efforts to ensure peace and tranquility in the border areas. The Ministry of External Affairs said occasionally, however, on account of difference in perception of the alignment of the line of actual control, situations have arisen on the ground that could have been avoided if we had a common perception of the LAC. The Army Chief said in a statement that temporary and short duration face-offs between border guarding troops do occur along the LAC due to the differing perceptions of the alignment of boundaries which are not resolved. Indian and Chinese soldiers in the Naku area in North Sikkim and Pangong Tso in eastern Ladakh were involved in scuffles and stone-pelting in the first week of May. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the tensions between India and China and the way forward. Joining me on the program today are Major General Ashwini Suvaj, retired defense expert, Jaidev Ranade, security and intelligence expert, and Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. General, let me begin the program with you. Let's first try and understand, the situation really surrounding these two incidents in Sikkim and Ladakh. What led to it? What was the issue, and what really happened?
Frank, first of all, there is no denying the fact that the boundary between India and China is not being demarcated on ground. The McMahon line, you remember that what happened in 1914, there was a similar sort of agreement which was signed between India and Tibet, and the Chinese were in presence. But the Chinese afterward did not recognize that. They said that this is not correct because that time Tibet was not having a sovereign power. So that watershed principle which was there at McMahon line was not being followed by the Chinese. And Chinese have got their own version what is there on the ground. So as on today, the LAC is not marketed on the ground. The boundary is not marketed. And at time what happened is, what we perceive in our territory, we go to that place, and what the Chinese perceive their own territory, they come. And at time, the same area is perceived by both, and there a face-off took place. The face-off took place in present time because when the snow has melted, the summer has come, the border patrols start increasing on the both sides, and that is how it takes place. But there is a mechanism and a protocol as per 1993, maintenance of peace and tranquility on line of control, which says how do you handle it. That is basically disengage and diffuse the situation. So this has happened here. But my take is, was it so simple as it is being made out? What happened in Nakula as well as in Pangong Tso, in Sikkim? My point is, I have certainly got my doubt that in Nakula and Pangong Tso, it is not basically a coincidence. It is adventurism which is being shown by Chinese. Especially why? Because World Health Organization annual meeting is to take place on 22nd May. And there the chair is now being with India. Japan was till now. So there is a pressure which is being put by China or indirectly on India that not to take Taiwan as a member, which is a pressure coming from all European and America that Taiwan must be made as a WHO member this time, at least an observer. So there is a pressure which is there. So India has to now act. So it is indirectly a pressure is being put by Chinese on India on this issue. Once it has happened, you see, I was the chief of staff of 14 Corps for 2 years. I know exactly what in Ladakh, where they came in Pangong Tso, finger 2, 3, 4, 5. My point is, after they have come there, we have almost resolved. They came to a perceiving a disputed area, and thereafter there were 3 helicopters which were seen very close to line of actual control. So my point is, this is an indirect tactics of putting pressure before the WHO, because China today is on a receiving end. It knows it that there is going to be a heavy pressure now in WHO meeting due to this coronavirus. And as far as China is concerned, it seemingly is guilty. It has, hidden number of facts. So they are trying now to put pressure on India.
Okay, points taken. Let me take the points that you're making forward with the ambassador now. Ambassador, Since the general has brought up the issue of Taiwan, I mean, what is the status there? Where do we stand as far as Taiwan is concerned? How big a problem is it? We know that the globe is making it a big issue. You know, Canada has raked it up in the recent past. The US is talking about it. The West is talking about it. You know, how big a problem is it?
I think it has a potential to become a very big problem. You know, Taiwan, China claims it as a part of its own territory, and it says that either peacefully or even by non-peaceful means, it should integrate, Taiwan should integrate with the mainland in the coming foreseeable future. So far, it has been that it would be through deliberations, through discussions, through dialogue, but it has not ruled out use of force. Now, Taiwan was an observer of the WHO and was a participant in the World Health Assembly sessions till 2016. But 2016, we had the new president, Tsai Ing-wen, and she has been a rather strong proponent of not having very close ties with China, with the mainland. Before that, the KMT, which was the Kuomintang party, which was in power, they had a position of having closer relations and linkages with the mainland. So maybe the mainland and Xi Jinping, they thought that by peaceful means, they would be able to get Taiwan to accede to Chinese mainland. But that doesn't seem to be happening. And now Tsai Ing-wen has she has won a second victory, another mandate this year. She is going to be inaugurated on the 22nd of May. They have seen what has been happening in Hong Kong. So Taiwan definitely does not want, one country, two systems sort of a thing in which Taiwan would also be subjected to similar treatment as pro-democracy elements in Hong Kong are being done. Now, as you said, it is not only the United States, it's not only Canada. There has been increasing measure of support, increasing number of voices all over the world. You have Australia, you have New Zealand, you have Japan, you have European Union, and many other countries, in addition, of course, to the United States. And I guess there is a pressure on India whenever Mike Pompeo has spoken to Dr. Jaishankar. There has also been this suggestion that India needs to come out and like a democracy, because how has Taiwan conducted itself? It has conducted itself with great credit, because it has just about 400 odd cases, 7 deaths as far as the coronavirus is concerned. And it was the first one to warn the WHO in December that there was this new pneumonia-like virus which had the possibility of a human-to-human transmission. But WHO refused to take cognizance of what Taiwan is saying, because Taiwan is not a member of WHO. And the Director General, Dr. Tedros of the WHO, somehow feels beholden to China, so they did not take any stand. So what the world is saying that that Taiwan has an important role to play. Its track record speaks of it. So they should be brought in as an observer at the World Health Assembly from the session starting on the 17th of May.
Okay, all right, Mr. Lanade. So coming back to the two incidents, of course, in Sikkim and in Ladakh, can they be dismissed as localized incidents, or can it be seen as adventurism, as the general has just pointed out, and part of a bigger plan and a bigger picture?
I would hesitate to say that it's part of a bigger plan, but I would certainly say that there is a context which guides the two incidents. And to an extent, I agree with the general. Only thing is, I would not use the word adventurism, because I suspect that in both cases, the actions were premeditated. For example, in North Sikkim, from what I hear, and I'm not privy to the inside reports, but from what one hears, there were around 250 people who were involved. Now, that's a large number. Secondly, the Chinese side came armed not with weapons, but with batons, which were studded
which had metal studs. Again, a sign of, being prepared for some kind of a scuffle or fistica, a premeditated kind of action. And the third, which is a bit of an unusual thing, though the Chinese have more and more, including their diplomats, started becoming more aggressive in behavior, was for the Chinese, I think it was a major, to insult one of our own captains, to which the young lieutenant reacted. I think something which is to be appreciated. And if I may say on your channel, I hope the next time a senior military delegation from India visits China, he's part of it. But because that is what the Chinese do. But that's one. The second is what happened in Chushul. There it was a large group. The helicopter arrived very quickly. And again, in both these cases, these are not areas where patrols have not gone in the past. But there has not been a confrontation every time. It seems to be whenever the Chinese want to deliver a message or raise the temperature, this kind of thing happens. Of course, I must say it was contained. The troops disengaged, but it certainly adds to two things. One is unpleasantness, and second is, to my mind, a questioning among the Indian people as to what exactly China is up and whether it can be trusted at all. Secondly, I think as far as the in Chushul and in North Sikkim, in both cases, again, there is a larger context, and the context I look at is the China-Pakistan relationship, which is growing exponentially. I mean, they have really increased a lot, and the tensions between India and Pakistan are also something that we need to take into account. I'm not suggesting that there was, a deliberate move by China to coordinate with the Pakistanis. That has not happened, but what they have done is give us enough of a tickle to think that there is such a possibility in future, particularly when we see the close proximity of China and Pakistan. But at this time, when there is such overwhelming global anti-China sentiment, for China to do this kind of thing will only backfire on it.
Okay, that's an interesting angle that you raised about, how there is heat on China and, how this may backfire. I'd like to take that up later on with the ambassador. I'll come back to that. But before that, General, as far as such issues are concerned on the LAC between India and China, it's not something new. It has happened in the past as well. Something that you spoke about in the beginning. There is a mechanism really to deal with such issues. Despite the tension, despite all of that that's happened over the decades, there has not been a single bullet that has been fired in a long, long time. So take us through that mechanism. What kind of mechanism is in place really to try and diffuse such situations?
Frank, there is no denying the fact, after 1967 of Nathula, no bullet has been fired between India and China, though the face-off has taken place quite a bit time. The biggest face-off which took place was in 1986 was in Samdrangchu, when, after that we had Operation Falcon, followed by Operation Checkerboard, that we have also gone ahead and occupied the defenses very close to line of actual control. Earlier we were quite far behind. Second thing which took place was in Doklam in June 2017, when the Chinese were constructing a road which was a Bhutanese territory, which was objected by India as well as Bhutan. And for us, it was strategically important, because if they would have come on Jamphari Ridge where they were making road, they would have dominated the Siliguri corridor, which connects the rest of India with Northeast. And this could have been a question mark for us. So therefore, we have shown our intent there, and we stood by, and for 73 days there was a standoff, and thereafter, one can say very, with a firm mind, the Chinese understood our mind and they cowed down and they went back, and the road construction was stopped. Notwithstanding with these two incidents, by and large, rest, most of the time the situations are resolved at a local formation level. It is basically 1993 agreement, which is a maintenance of peace and tranquility on the line of actual control. What happens is, whenever there is a face-off take place, there is a protocol and there are a SOP on the both sides, that you first disengage and then diffuse the situation. If the situation is diffused at the formation, local formation level, good enough. If not, then the level is raised by having a border meeting or a flag meeting. So by and large, it is working. because in 1996 we added to that by confidence building measures so that a mutual trust is developed between India and China. As far as LAC is concerned, line of actual control starting from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, by and large it is peaceful, but at times the Chinese have shown their intent, and that time it baffles you because the area which was not disputed, once it is made disputed, then you feel that what can be the intent of the Chinese. And that same thing happened in both in Sikkim at Nakula and Pangong Tso Lake in Arunachal Pradesh, in Ladakh. So that is what it is. Otherwise, by and large, our mechanism is quite okay and it is working on ground, and peace and tranquility is existing. No bullet has been fired after 1967.
Okay, all right. Ambassador, coming back to the point that Mr. Ranade was making earlier in the program, the heat is well and truly on China. There is absolutely no doubt about it. You spoke about it in your opening comments as well. But despite that, forays continue in the South China Sea. Despite that, China is maintaining a very aggressive stand. Where is all this coming from? Is there anything? Is there more to it than meets the eye, really?
I think so to an extent, but if you permit, Frank, before I answer to your question, I'll just like to add one comment on what I said earlier. Why is China so averse to Taiwan becoming even an observer at the World Health Assembly? Because China says that its system, authoritarian system, has done extremely well in dealing with this pandemic, while a democratic system in the United States, which is the most developed of the countries, which is the most prosperous, they have failed miserably. So they are trying to build a narrative that the Chinese authoritarian system is better than a democratic system. And here, when you compare it to Taiwan, small country, without any support from the World Health Organization, etc., on its own, a democracy has been able to do much better than what all the other countries, authoritarian systems, etc., have been able to do. Now, coming to your question, I think there are a number of things that must be going through the mind of Chinese leadership. You would recall that when the US-China trade war started in 2018, that was the time when China reached out to India because they didn't want to keep two fronts open. They said, we are having a front of confrontation, contestation with the United States. Let's try to sort of, settle relations with India. So we had the Wuhan informal summit that led to last year to the Mahabalipuram second informal summit. Today, I think what China feels is that they are very powerful. They are powerful militarily. They are powerful economically. Economically, they have started much before than any of the other countries have started. They see that the United States is not in a position to take them on. So they feel that this is a good opportunity. So while at that time, 2 years ago, they were looking at sort of, not having too many fronts open. Today, they feel that politically, economically, they are strong enough to take these countries. So what is starting here on the Indian border, line of actual control, what has happened in South China Sea, as you mentioned very rightly, Frank, whether it is the fishing trawler with Vietnam, with Indonesia, Malaysia, the Taiwan Strait, so everywhere it is flexing its muscles. So that is, I think, one aspect. The other also is, I think Xi Jinping himself is under considerable pressure domestically at home. So you know what happens that when there are authoritarian leaders who are under pressure at home, what is their, the default reaction to that is to have some sort of a problem outside, and also to demonstrate to the people at home that he is a strong leader, he's a decisive leader, and he is sort of, promoting the interest as far as China's territories are concerned, whether it is in South China Sea or elsewhere, it is taking it forward. So I think on both internally, domestically, as well as globally, China finds that this is a good time where it can flex its muscles and can get away with it. And there are no competitors, there are no contestants to it. And even in South China Sea, it feels that they individually or collectively, none of them is strong enough to take China on.
Absolutely. All right. So, Mr. Ranade, that having been said, is it a case of testing the waters, or what is it really? Because clearly an escalation of tensions is in no one's interest, and especially not in India's and China's.
I think actually the issue is wide open in China at the moment. There has been a lot of pressure on Xi Jinping, which has mounted, particularly after the outbreak of the pandemic in Wuhan, in Hubei. But even before that, from the time the 19th Party Congress started, which was in October 2017, and the National People's Congress in March 2018, when Xi Jinping abolished the term limits for elevation of party cadres to high posts, I think that is the time since when the resentment started and people began coming out and criticizing. And basically, a large number of people said, we don't want to return to the one-man rule of Mao. That is how it started. Subsequently, as Xi Jinping enhanced the, shall I say, the potency of the security apparatus, and it became more and more intrusive as the party's surveillance expanded, including positioning of a party member in the primary school classrooms and upwards to monitor what the professors and lecturers were saying. I think the atmosphere became stifling and people began speaking out. Now in China, when you do speak out, you're running almost a certain risk of punishment. They disregarded it and came out in fact on their social media accounts, on their own personal accounts. So many of them have been picked up. Earlier, I think Ashok was talking about some of the names. Yeah, there are about 15 to 20 people so far, prominent individuals who come out who've been picked up and barred from using social media. But that's one part of it. The second is that there was a perception growing in China that the so-called two centenary goals that Xi Jinping had of China Dream, making China powerful by 2049 to rival the United States, they're slipping out of his grasp. And people looked at what's happening in Hong Kong and the negative vote for the pro-Beijing KMT and the pro-independence DPP, the positive vote, as signs of this slipping out. And if you notice, it is in the last couple of months, in fact, since February, that Xi Jinping has started bringing his loyalists in to demonstrate his authority, has started cracking down on Hong Kong, and these actions with Vietnam, the Philippines, etc., have started happening. But in all the cases, he's been very careful not to, if I may use a term, needle the United States, because there are a large number of voices coming out in public in the last month, in fact, since mid-April, saying that China is way behind the United States. It's about 20 years, that's the figure they say, behind the US in military and economic terms. So they are warning to fight the US. I think Xi Jinping realizes that if he does pick a fight, it is something that could have larger repercussions. And I dare say that if he does pick a fight here with us, well, we have seen what happened in Doklam. I don't think it's going to be a pushover. What he's looking for is something quick, sharp, and from his point of view, sweet, which he can hold up as a victory, which I don't think will happen here. So he'll look for softer options. That's my take on it. But I think we need to be vigilant about these two incidents.
Absolutely. All right. So time now to get closing comments from all my guests with the best way forward. I'm going to ask you to be brief. You've got limited time on the program, starting first with you, General.
See, Frank, my only view is that if you want a respect from Chinese, you have to be equally strong, if not stronger than him. What has happened is that over a period of time, Indian defense forces have now upgraded it, whether it is in the northern border, we have now inducted more force level. We have raised a strike mountain corps, which can now have offensive capability to go to Tibet. We have M777 Hauser, which has been built in, attack Hepter, which has been given. Same way, in Ladakh sector, our force level has increased tremendously. We have also taken an armored brigade, SATA brigade, to carry out all-weather surveillance. So overall, what we are seeing is our military capability has gone manifold in last about a decade, so that we can give a befitting reply to Chinese of any adventurism which Chinese do it. And if we do that, and if we keep on upgrading our activities, notwithstanding that China is trying to encircle us, whether it is Kawakopu, Chittagong, or Hamantota, or Djibouti, or Gwadar, but if we keep on upgrading our military capability, infrastructure development, capacity building next to the line of control, we will find it the Chinese will not involve themselves in any type of adventure, and they will respect it, and they will follow the Treaty of 1993, peace and tranquility on line of actual control.
Okay, all right, Ambassador.
Frank, I think India finds itself in a very good spot at this moment. I think we have been with 1.3 billion population and rather, fragile healthcare system. We've been able to deal with the pandemic quite well, quite effectively in terms of the policies that we've taken. And also, I think India has reached out to a large number of countries, started with SAARC, then G20, then NAM, then all the other countries, and individually. India has supplied medicines to about 123 countries, 130 countries in the world. So I think India has taken very good advantage of the situation that we are in. The focus that we need to do now is on our economy. And we have seen that there is a second stimulus package of 20 lakh crores. We have been hearing about what are the different elements of this package. I think we need to focus on our economy, bring our economy up. Once the economy improves, then all the things that General Sivach is saying, we'll be able to do that, invest more also in military. But I think economy is very, very important. The second thing is there are a number of opportunities and possibilities. For instance, we've been having these discussions, whether we call them Quad Plus or Indo-Pacific Group, at the foreign secretary level from the end of March till now, every week they have been meeting. The 4 Quad countries, that is Australia, Japan, US, India, along with Vietnam, South Korea, and New Zealand. They've been having discussions on this. And I think this is a good opportunity to expand our alliances with other countries. So I think both focus on economy in terms of our partnerships with other countries. And I think there are a number of weak spots as far as China is concerned, whether it is Taiwan, Hong Kong. India becomes a member of the executive board of the World Health Organization on the 22nd, and it takes over as the president of the executive board on the 22nd of this month. So I think that will also provide it with great power, authority, and clout, which it can use diplomatically. I think there are many opportunities, and I don't have the slightest hesitation in saying that a country will use them well.
All right. And Mr. Ranade, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Well, let me be brief, and I'll just say that as China is concerned and India is concerned, there is, of course, everyone keeps talking about the potential of this relationship and where it can go. But so far, every effort by India has been frustrated. So I think we keep that in mind. But as far as China is concerned today, it is going to look for new markets. And the biggest market on the scene is ours. So I think that's one leverage that we do have over China, and we should be very, very parsimonious in allowing it any access whatsoever. The second is this repeated talk or mention by the Chinese of a one China principle, which again, I think yesterday, their counselor here in Delhi again referred to the one China principle. I think we need to not only remember, but also start implementing the late Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj's comment on that, when the Chinese Foreign Minister mentioned that to her about the one China principle. She said, you do one India and we will do one China. I think that is what needs to be brought back to the table. And finally, let me just say that since Taiwan has figured a couple of times, I don't think, and I'm quoting the Chinese here, that any disease, particularly the coronavirus, knows any boundaries, national or otherwise. And therefore, the World Health Organization not admitting any country or any populace in this world as a member is an oxymoron. I don't see how it fits in. If it's a World Health Organization, people must be brought in. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as for India, as it builds its economy, which is probably the most important thing for it today, we are losing out an economic opportunity. if we don't upgrade our ties with Taiwan and reach out to other countries also. I'll just end with that.
Okay, all right, Ambassador. I saw you putting up your hand on 2 occasions very quickly in 10 or 15 seconds because I'm completely out of time on the program.
Absolutely, very quickly, Frank. One is that on the one China principle that Jaydev mentioned, you would recall that when Wen Jiabao had come to India in 2010, from that time onwards, none of our joint statements have reiterated the one China principle. The second point I wanted to make is that in terms of the decoupling and move out of China of supply chains, I think India has a very good opportunity. We have to set our house in order and attract these large number of companies which will be leaving China. Thank you.
Okay, all right. On that note, then I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.